Hi, and thanks for joining me. Up until the CBS interview with Jane Pauley and Harry and Meghan over the last few days, I had pretty much decided to move away from the Harry and Meghan story. Quite frankly, I was sick of it. And I was sick of the fact that they never seem to receive any consequences and nothing ever seems to really happen to challenge them or test the veracity of their claims. It's just an exercise in frustration. And I've got to say, where are the journalists? Where are the journalists over the last 4 years? They have been tested on the veracity of their claims. They have been tested by YouTubers. They have also been tested by numerous authors that have done really well researched, deep diving books into the subject, and all credit to them for that. But journalists have been missing in action. And Harry and Meghan have been on the record through various interviews, through their docuseries, through Harry's book, through the latest CBS interview, with a lot of claims. And it would be helpful if some journalists actually checked the veracity of some of those claims, deep dived into some of those claims. Even a simple thing as checking a timeline raises inconsistencies that raise questions. But no, all journalists do is actually have a go at them, sneer at them, laugh at them, but they never really delve into them and expose them. And that is what's required. And that hard job has been taken up by YouTubers, like I said, really overwhelmingly by YouTubers. Now, you might detect that I'm a little bit angry, and the reason why I'm a little bit angry is now innocent people are starting to get affected by these two. And I don't think there was anybody that watched the CBS interview that wasn't affected by the parents that they actually highlighted in their initiative. I mean, if you're a parent yourself, you cannot walk in their shoes, obviously. You cannot feel their pain, but you can imagine it. And when you imagine it, it affects you. It hurts you. Now, I have been contacted by 3 parents in my comments. They're there for anyone to see in the comments section. And I, responded in an appropriate manner. But I've got to admit, I have lost a few nights' sleep over what they said. And what they were saying was that they felt exploited. Now, these weren't the parents that are part of the parental network that is the initiative of Archwell. These are completely unrelated. They're just parents that have lost their children under tragic circumstances. And they said that CBS interview actually, brought up a lot of hurt, a lot of grief, and a lot of anger. And so they expressed it in my comment section. And I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to make another video. I don't know if I'll ever make another one. It depends whether they do anything else that's really exploitive and makes claims that need to be checked, or present a timeline that I know is wrong and inconsistent, or attack the royal family in an egregious and unfair manner. Yeah, I guess I probably will make more videos, but I'm not going to make any more videos over silly, meaningless guff. I'll leave that for the snarky snippets. Anyway, I'm going to present you with a lot of information that I've put on slides for you so that you can actually look at it yourself. And I'm not necessarily going to draw big conclusions because obviously you have to be careful. There are legalities involved in these sorts of deep dive videos. But I will leave you to make up your own mind. And at least I can sleep at night knowing that I've highlighted what I can. Now, first off, I want to show you the correlation between the Oprah Winfrey interview and also the CBS interview. Now, Jane Pauley actually made that correlation. She showed a clip from the Oprah Winfrey interview illustrating that Meghan was talking about her mental health to Oprah Winfrey and actually highlighting the fact that when they went to the Cirque du Soleil performance that all was not as it seemed. And I'll say more about that later. Now, I think Meghan had a choice at that point. If she didn't want Jane Pauley to make that correlation, she could have said, Well, thank you very much for your concern, Jane, but I want to talk about the parents that we have with us today. I want to focus on our initiative. I don't want to make this all about me, so I think we should focus on the subject at hand, although I do appreciate that there are parallels, but I don't want to focus on that today. That's all she had to say graciously, and the interview could have continued. But she chose to answer it, and therefore she chose to endorse that correlation. And this is what was actually said. And I'll put that up on a slide so you can see for yourself. There is a through line, I think, when you've been through any level of pain or trauma. I believe part of my healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. Okay, so fair enough. I haven't got any great criticism about that, but she did agree to the correlation to be made. Now, one of the things about Harry and Meghan that I find quite alarming is that whenever they're making some of their more questionable claims, where the veracity of their claims could be tested by, hopefully, a journalist that was interested in their craft, it's usually in the areas of sensitive areas like mental health, to do with, like I said, tragic outcomes from severe mental health issues, and also racism. So two hot potatoes the journalists won't touch. And I guess, can you blame them? Also, there's a lot of legalities involved around, discussing those issues. So you do have to be very careful. And like I said, I'm going to be very careful in this video not to make any outlandish claims. I'm just going to present information that I found and inconsistencies in timelines mainly. Okay, so let's get on to the next slide. So the next slide is what Meghan actually said in the Oprah Winfrey interview. And there was something that she said that really sort of raised my eyebrows, and has for the last 4 years. And so I've just decided to actually address it, seeing the CBS correlation was made by Jane Pauley. Now, in it, Meghan was talking to Oprah Winfrey about that Cirque du Soleil photo that a friend had actually sent to her saying, wow, you looked absolutely fabulous. And she claimed to Oprah Winfrey that what I saw was the truth of what that moment was, because right before we had to leave for that, I had just had that conversation with Harry that morning, and it was the next day that I talked to the institution. Whereupon Oprah confirmed what she was trying to say by saying, you didn't want to be here anymore. Okay, that wasn't what was said, but I have to be careful. Okay, and then Oprah did a woo, which is highly inappropriate. So there's a few things in that statement that really made me look into the timeline, because Meghan claimed that she talked to Harry about her concerns that morning. Then mid-sentence talking to Oprah, she changed it to just before they left for the Cirque du Soleil performance. And then she said that she went to the institution, which was that ridiculous visit to the HR department, the very next morning. And that is what I want to show you today. So we're going to look at the next slide. Here we go. Now, this is from Prince Harry's book, Spare. This is a brief little excerpt from that. I walked home from the office and found Meg sitting on the stairs. Now, she was at the bottom of the stairs and she was sobbing. And I guess that was obviously very confronting, very painful and very traumatic for him, because I'm sure he would have heard the stories about his mother and stairs and being pregnant with William, although that has been since debunked in actually Phil Craig's book, and I'm interviewing him about that on Saturday. So watch out for that one. But it would have been trauma. He would have been aware of stairs, pregnant, his mother. Okay. So he went to her and thought that they'd lost the baby. I went to her on my knees. She choked out that she didn't want to do this anymore. He said, do what? And she then said, LIVE. Okay, now she was obviously very upset. He begged her not to talk like that. He promised that he would find solutions, and he asked her to be strong and hang on. Now, this is a confronting little part in his book where he says that he was thinking like an effing royal and that they had the Centre Bali engagement that night at the Royal Albert Hall. And so that was where he was saying that his working royal side was kicking in, and he was thinking that we can't be late, because then they'll blame it on her and they'll say she's a diva, sort of that sort of narrative, okay? Now, I looked up this, the Centre Bali occasion for Totem, which was a Cirque du Soleil performance at the Royal Albert Hall, was on the 16th of January 2019. So that is verified, okay? That's when it was. Now, the fact that he said, I was thinking like an effing royal, I would argue, Harry, that you were actually paying attention to your duty. You were paying attention to your obligation to other people. You were paying attention to the fact that if you cancelled it, you'd be letting a lot of people down, plus people that in good faith were going to contribute in a grand fashion to your charity Centre Bali. So it definitely was a consideration. However, if you believe that it was a true emergency, you would have acted. Now, that's just my opinion. My opinion is, and I could be wrong, and I'm not claiming that this is fact. Opinion is not fact. It is just opinion. I feel that anyone who felt that their loved one was in grave danger would have acted at that point. If, however, they thought that this was a little performative or maybe not quite as serious as made out, and that it was just a lot of upset, real upset, then maybe they would continue and offer to go to the Centre Bali performance by themselves and offer for the distressed person to stay home to rest and recover. But you wouldn't leave them alone, would you? You wouldn't leave them alone if you believed that it was a true emergency. And you can't claim ignorance for that, because Harry had worked for the previous 7 years in the mental health area, and in particular in this area. He knew how to respond. He knew what was needed. He knew that you had to reach out for help immediately if it was a serious and plausible situation. He knew it. 7 years of training. But he suggested Meghan stay home by herself and he'd go on to the occasion, whereupon she said, no, I'll come. I don't want to be left home alone by myself. Okay, all right. Now, like I said, all I've expressed so far is opinion. That's all I've expressed, opinion. Okay, next slide. So they put on their best kit and she applied dark lipstick to draw attention away from her bloodshot eyes, and out the door we went. Now, I cannot find one image from that evening that shows bloodshot eyes. I cannot find one image from that evening that shows dark lipstick. She had a bright, quite light red lip on. And it wasn't dark. It wasn't dark crimson. It wasn't a dark, broody red. It wasn't overwhelming her face. And her eyes were as white as white. So I could not find one image unless they'd been photoshopped, whereupon Getty Images should probably pull all the photographs, shouldn't they? Because they've been photoshopped, if that's the case, and we can't have Photoshop images up on Getty Images, can we? This is photographs of them arriving for the Cirque du Soleil performance on the 16th of January at Royal Albert Hall. Shining, glamorous, happy, all together. They look perfect, don't they? They look absolutely perfect. And yet, we can't believe our own eyes. We don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. Okay, I accept that. I accept that we can't see what's going on behind the scenes. But many authors of books on this subject have actually raised the same questions that I'm raising today, that you would think that there would be some indication of, a slightly red eye, maybe the left one. Now, I'm going to go back to what she said to Oprah Winfrey, because she said that it was the next day that she talked to the institution. Okay, so she went to Cirque du Soleil on the 16th of January 2019. She claimed to Oprah Winfrey that she went to the institution, that HR department visit, on the 17th of January 2019. Well, recollections may vary, because let's have a look at this one. This is the 17th of January. And she was actually on an official function. She was visiting Mayhew, I hope that's pronounced correctly. It's Mayhew, animal shelter. This is Meghan visiting that shelter the very next day. Now, I don't know whether that was in the morning. Maybe she popped into HR first, but she is certainly not showing any signs of distress. Now, she says that she felt she wasn't believed and she wasn't supported by the institution. She also claimed in the Oprah Winfrey interview that she couldn't even seek help privately. She couldn't go to a hospital. She couldn't reach out to anybody because she didn't have her passport, driver's license, and even her own keys. And she couldn't exactly call an Uber to the palace. So there you have actually Prince Harry sitting on this information now for 24 hours. You have Meghan happily going off onto yet another official engagement at the animal shelter, which was incredibly brave of her, considering how she suffered the night before. And she claims that somehow in that day, she actually popped into HR, laid out all these heartfelt, tragic claims and had those rejected, and she felt like she wasn't believed. Okay. All right. One could suggest that maybe when she was chauffeur driven to the animal shelter that she could have said to the driver, could you drop me off at the nearest hospital, please? That would have saved the Uber problem. Do you see why I'm frustrated about this? I'm frustrated about it because for this initiative, this parental network initiative, when they are questioned about it, they're not even really very clear about what sort of money Archewell is contributing to the cause. They're not even very clear about the outcomes they're hoping to achieve. They're not really very clear about their agenda other than social media platforms being censored and making sure that social media platforms are governed what they can actually publish and who can see it. But that's the only thing they're clear about. But they're not clear about initiatives to help parents that are truly suffering. These poor parents that were there for the photo op, that were there for the video, that were there for the interview in this very undeveloped initiative. And that's why I'm rather tense and angry about this, because the last people I would want to see let down are parents like that. Now, there's one more thing I have to actually share with you when you're investigating Harry and Meghan, and I've done this for several years now, not claiming that I've done as much as other YouTubers because I was fairly late to the party. But I have been keeping notes. I have been investigating this for a few years now. And one thing I have noticed that there's always a discrepancy between dates and times of even official engagements. If you look at US media, they actually said that Meghan attended this animal shelter, then went home, got changed, and turned up at the Royal Albert Hall for the Cirque du Soleil performance on the 17th of January. Now, why that inconsistency? All the UK media are sort of parallel with what Santi Bali announced, which was that it was on the 16th of January on the Royal Albert Hall. Also, all the UK media agree that she attended this animal shelter the very next day on the 17th of January. It's only in the USA media, presumably maybe the USA media that is fed stories from personal PR companies, where this discrepancy actually enters the picture. And it makes it extremely hard to pin down anything. It makes it extremely hard to pin down dates, to pin down times. Now, if Princess Anne goes off and looks at a horse event and she's going at 2 p.m. on the 19th of January, you will find that that is correlated pretty much across all global media. They'll agree on the time, they'll agree on the day, they'll agree what she did, they'll agree what she wore. They'll even agree what she did that night. But with Harry and Meghan, there is often these discrepancies. And if you don't keep notes, and if you don't take note when you find something at the time and save it, you can often go back at a later date, particularly if it's in a Sussex-friendly media like People magazine or Marie Claire or Grazia or even Hello, you will find that often the articles have been updated. And the thing that you thought you were sure you saw, you can't find again. It happens to me all the time. And it makes me sound like a gaslit, wacko conspiracy theorist. I know. I'm not. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. I won't challenge anyone on that, but I will tell you about my experience. You see, I'm scraping the surface of my experience. So to double check the veracity of my claims, I went to the Prince and Princess of Wales Instagram account because they actually posted about Meghan attending that animal shelter, because at the time, a lot of their posts about their official engagements were being put through their Instagram account, the Kensington Palace Instagram account. And they used to show support for Harry and Meghan's official engagements. They used to give them a shout out. They used to highlight them. And of course, the breaking up of the two officers happened in March of that year. So that's why, it's still this joint sort of thing. So here it is from the Prince and Princess of Wales Instagram account, and it's verifying that Meghan was there for, at Mayhew's Therapause animal therapy program. Okay. And there's even another one. They did several. They even did a video of her there. And a lot of us have seen that video, and that raises interesting questions. That video raises a lot of really interesting questions. Again, where are the journalists? Where are the journalists? Why didn't they check that timeline from the Oprah Winfrey interview? Why didn't they query exactly what date Meghan actually did visit the HR department? Why didn't they check the veracity of that claim that she made to Oprah Winfrey? Why didn't they look at the videos that were posted online around that time? Oh my goodness. They raised so many questions that required further investigation. But that was all left up to YouTubers to do, and often to their own detriment, often to the point of being thrown off social media platforms, being sneered at, where it being implied that they were somehow loopy. Well, they weren't loopy. They were just actually doing the job of journalists, the job that journalists should have been doing. And that is my bugbear of this video. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening? Who's shutting it down? To what advantage is this to not investigate this story properly? To whose advantage? Is the royal family afraid that some of, this is going to actually damage the institution? Are they part of the suppression of this story? I'm not claiming they are, but I'm saying that a lot of people that are investigating all this are getting increasingly frustrated that there only seems to be a certain cohort of people that are putting in the hard work. All right, next slide. Okay, now this is a person that put in a lot of hard work, and she's copped her fair share of criticism and sneering. Lady C's book, Meghan and Harry, Persecutors or Victims. Now I'm going to share what she actually said about this event in her book. She claims in her book, upon her investigation and brave enough to actually raise these questions, she cannot have been sobbing between the Cirque du Soleil acts, as she claimed, for her makeup never ran, and subsequent claims to said ideation are not borne out by an examination of the facts. Now, that is what Lady C says. She says that she was looking consistently upbeat and actressy, as only Lady C can say. Let's have a look at what other authors have actually said. Let's go and have a look at what Tom Bower said in Revenge about this moment. The seriousness of Meghan's plight was dramatically revealed on the 16th of January 2019. That evening, the Sussexes were, and he goes on to say, the Cirque du Soleil performance. Now, this is interesting. Listen to this. He says, verifying these events is difficult. Hallelujah. Tom Bower is verifying what I'm saying to you, that everything is very hard to verify. It's almost impossible to verify. It is possible if you stick at it, but it's hard. It's hard because their stories vary all the time. You can't lock it down. He says, pertinently, Harry and Meghan gave conflicting accounts of the saga. Yes, they did. Where are the journalists questioning their accounts of the saga? In public, they disagreed whether Meghan felt, how she felt. And I'm not disputing that she didn't feel those feelings. I'm disputing the fact that there's inconsistencies in the timeline when, where, what, how. Okay, so she claimed initially the night before, then in the morning, then both. They couldn't agree on the number of days before they sought help. And, the experienced medical specialist that they supposedly reached out to in another story, in another narrative, that was never confirmed, although Meghan did claim in the Oprah Winfrey interview that they did reach out to a friend of Diana, because it would only be a friend of Diana that could understand what it's like on the inside of the institution. Well, to me, cynical me, personal opinion again, and I'm not saying that my personal opinion is worth a hill of beans. However, I just feel like that was a way to inject Diana into the narrative. That's what I feel at this point. Like I said, could be highly inaccurate and highly unfair. And I do apologise, Harry and Meghan, if I am being unfair. Okay, next slide. Now, this is the thing that I said about Us Weekly actually claiming that she went to the animal shelter. This is proof that I'm not making it up. Later in the day, Meghan joined Prince Harry at the premiere of Cirque du Soleil's Totem at Royal Albert Hall in London. No, that wasn't actually Us Weekly. That was, my apologies, that was Good Morning America. It was an article written using footage from Good Morning America and also footage of, images. Okay, it was a digital article. All right, now let's have a look what Tina Brown says in the Palace Papers. Now, Tina Brown got her timeline wrong. And if you look at my interview with Lady C, you will see that I complimented her on her timeline, because I checked her timeline against everything that I have, and it was accurate. It was highly accurate. It was the most accurate. Okay, now that wasn't me fetting and fawning, that's just the truth. Now, you will find that in the Palace Papers with Tina Brown that she made a fatal mistake when she was actually reporting on this story, and I'll share it with you now. And this was it in the next slide. Now, oh no, I think it's later on. Maybe I was actually going to let her off the hook. Yeah, I was going to let her off the hook. So actually, I'll have to tell you what her mistake was. She said that it sounded like that Meghan was actually suffering from postpartum depression. Well, of course, she was pregnant with Archie at the time, so it couldn't have been postpartum. So, yes, that was a mistake, and I actually chose not to include it in the slides. So this is what Tina Brown actually said, and she's actually referring to Harry's response, which I said, earlier on, that if he really believed that there was real and present danger, that probably he would have taken action, I would think, unless he was not, thinking very clearly, and he claims he wasn't. And what did her princely husband do about it? I went to a very dark place as well, he told Oprah, but I wanted to be there for her, and I was terrified. I guess I was ashamed of admitting it to my family. I didn't have anyone to turn to. Well, I call absolute BS on that. Now, to be fair to journalists, at the time of this, they did call BS on that fact too. But I call BS on that fact because here we have these vulnerable, grieving parents hitching their bandwagon to the Harry and Meghan show, and I really worry for them. I really do, because here you've got someone who's admitting that he didn't take the appropriate action, that he, dropped into his own despair at the time and didn't provide adequate help, timely help at the time. Now, should they be heading an initiative like this? Should they be heading a mental health initiative when they have displayed that they are vulnerable to mental health issues? Are they the best people to be leading this initiative? And are the grieving parents actually vulnerable, being involved with two people that have demonstrated that they can't cope and don't know how to react in an appropriate way? I raise that question. Why isn't that question being raised? Maybe it has been in the last 24 hours and I've missed it. Okay, next slide. Now, Tina Brown actually asserts that this was actually disingenuous, because it was an index of Harry's panic that after 7 years of therapy, he seemed paralysed about turning to the same palace advisors who had supported him in the past. Now, I'm going to finish off with a final image. I'm not really going to spell out the obvious. You don't have to spell out the obvious in the comments either, really. I know you're all bright as buttons and you'll get what I'm getting at here. So this is the final image that I am going to share. Now, this image was taken on the 30th of January. It's all over the internet. It was actually Meghan in her capacity as patron of the National Theatre. Now, of course, our late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II gave her that patronage because she thought that she would enjoy it. Being an ex-cable drama actress, she thought that she was suitable to be patron of the National Theatre. So I guess there's some parallels there. Oh, I'm just being bitchy now. I'm just being so bitchy now. Anyway, bit of light relief. Let's go back to the photograph, shall we? All right, so 30th of January, the last photograph that you saw was on the 17th of January. You will see stark differences between what I showed you on the 17th of January to the 30th of January. And those stark differences are inexplicable. They are inexplicable. So I'm going to leave it there. I don't think I need to say any more. I think a lot of assumptions are made about YouTubers that they make these videos about Harry and Meghan because they're trying to feather their own nest. I think a lot of us are motivated by something very different to that. I think we're motivated by justice, by the fact that if anybody else actually undertook any of these activities, if it was just a simple celebrity, can you imagine the pile-on? Can you imagine the exposure by now? Can you imagine what would have happened if it had been anybody else other than Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? Because I feel like it must be a certain degree of protection being afforded to them because of their relationship to the royal family and the institution of the monarchy. And I think that is a severe misstep for the monarchy, because I agree with Andrew Loney that actually it's only through transparency that trust in institutions is forged. And I think it's got to the point now where if the trust in the institution is going to be maintained, then there needs to be more transparency. There needs to be more investigation. And I'm hoping that if you share this video and if it gets around a little bit, I'm really hoping that, respected journalists, broadsheet journalists will actually delve into this and have a really good look and do some good reporting, because I think it's long, long overdue. Thanks a lot for joining me, and I'll see you again, preferably with a lighter video. Actually, tomorrow night I'll be doing the final chapter of Royal Secrets, our current book. I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be a much welcome change of pace. And on Saturday night, I've got a marvellous interview with Phil Craig. If you like this video, I encourage you to watch that video too. See you then. Bye.